All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Hello and welcome again to the Read Rothbard Podcast. This is number 12, and I just played for the first time the audio intro for Robert Johnson. How you doing, Robert? That's what I play before our shows these days. What do you think?
Yeah, welcome to the worst episode ever. What's up?
Worst episode.
I love how you're just like, hey, we should do a show. And I'm like, nothing's really happened. And you're like, I don't care. And you're like, and I'm like, yeah, but we should probably have something to talk about. And he's like, well, there's always stuff to talk about. And I'm like, well, that's true. But usually this is like a news kind of a response show, and there hasn't really been any news since yesterday. So we're going to be this is going to go in the can, and then it's going to be released in like 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks' time from when we recorded this, something crazy is going to happen. And then it's going to be like, well, we don't even reference it. So that'll be kind of weird. But
yeah,
whatever.
you make a good point there, Robert, because I do like the idea of having a few episodes in the can, but perhaps maybe what we should do is not identify the episode within the episode so that we can just plug it in later. So let's say I didn't just call this episode 12. And
that's right.
We slate this for 2.5 weeks from now because it's supposed to be every Friday, and I've already got 2 other episodes, so this would be the 3rd. And yeah, if some other shit happens between now and then this would get pushed a week or 2 or whatever. I mean, maybe this one never sees the light of day because it's so bad. It's just so fucking bad.
That's right. It'd be an embarrassment because we don't know what we're going to do. Well, we kind of know. But
it could be a bonus episode or outtakes. People can laugh at our lack of skills and ability. That's fun.
They could do that anyway, but yeah, that's true.
But
so Daniel, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, the previous episode, which we did record yesterday, though, it'll probably be like a week or 2 apart, so that'll seem weird for us to talk about it like that. But
yeah,
we had discussed the idea, the concept of sort of honing our message a bit and crafting it around a little bit more of the fundamentals and how it relates in popular culture or movies that people may be familiar with or already seen, and then we can discuss aspects of them, and then when those people go back and think about those movies or watch them again, they may have a new perspective.
That sounds good.
Because our scattershot approach, though it has proved fun for the last dozen or so episodes, every time we record one, we both feel like that was garbage.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Though I have to confess, the Star Trek episode, which is not yet released, it's coming out this Friday, I had to do a whole bunch of editing to that one. But our one that we recorded yesterday, which I still haven't come up with a name for, we were originally thinking we were going to talk about white privilege, but we kept going on and around about the marketplace of ideas, so that'll probably be something in the title. That one, I think I'm just going to go straight out of the box. I mean, I do my, cut out the pauses and speed it up a little bit. Not for you, but for me, because I speak so slowly. Like, when I listen to you, before it's sped up, you sound normal. When I hear me, it's like droning on and on about bullshit, Bueller. It's fucking terrible. So I try to speed it up just so that I sound semi-coherent, alive. I think it makes me sound way smarter than I am, which is a bonus. Unfortunately, it costs you the price of sounding like a chipmunk a little bit, but, it's a small price to pay, my friend.
Well, you have the white privilege of doing the editing on the show since you have the unlimited data connection. So with your locational privilege and your white privilege and your ISP privilege, you have the privilege of making the show sound how you want it to sound, and then I get the shaft. So it's fine. It's fine, and it's fine even though I'm discriminated against because of my location and the fact that I'm a white man. I guess. You're a white man.
It's fine. It's fine because you've been privileged your entire life and all of your generations before you, even though only 4% of the American population that's alive today have any ancestral heritage to owning slaves. But, reparations are demanded.
Yeah, that reparations website you sent me.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
I think it could actually work in Seattle. Seattle is a very progressive lefty SJW feminist type PC place.
Fight for 15, baby. Bernie, feel the burn.
Right, all that whole business of heavy socialism and controlling what other people think and do.
Well, let's do a summary of the article, if you will.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't have it in front of me. You do. But basically this lady, and correct me where I'm wrong, has started a website.
I often do.
Yeah. It's called reparations.com or something like that. I don't know what it's really called. But it's a reparations website where white people, and I don't know if there's some sort of the article mentioned there was specifically white people signing up to offer services for free to black people specifically. So I don't know if you have to, if there's some sort of vetting process, but basically you can sign up as a black person and say, hey, I need this, and then a white person could get on and say, oh, I can fulfill that service, or I can give you that thing. Or a white person can say, hey, I'm a business owner that provides X, and then a black person can go, oh, I could use that, so I'll take that because I'm a black person and I'm owed it. Is that correct, Daniel?
Yeah, that sounds to be about the gist of it. I think
it's all
she's
voluntary, though.
Yeah.
So that's, hey, go for it. If you feel some sort of white guilt and you're getting something out of giving something to another human being, great. And it just so happens to be that it's a white person doing it for a black person, I don't care. It's all voluntary. But go ahead. What do you got?
Well, I just wanted to say that she's like a bit of an artist or a concept artist, and this is supposed to be making a statement of sorts in relation to the idea of reparations for slavery and how people have been held back because their great-great-great-grandparents were slaves and et cetera. So I don't know if it's intended to be an actual thing or if it's just intended to send a message. But your idea of...
Or if this is a real business.
Yeah. I don't know if it's more of a statement or an actual thing that's going to be an ongoing concern or not. But I agree with you. I mean, it is a voluntary thing, and that's the only level of reparations I would support is if it's voluntary. And if they want to say, it's black people who can sign up to receive, and it's only white people who can sign up to offer things, as distasteful as that would be to a statist, an SJW, in any other environment, I think that they would support
the other way around. If it was the other way around, I wonder if there would be as much support about it if you get an article in The Stranger about it.
You would get an article in The Stranger about how evil you were, I think.
Right.
About it, how you were a hate group, and you'd be on the SPLC website. You were telling me about that.
Yeah, the SPLC, I spent some time on that the other day because I was angry, as usual. And just the most ridiculous things pop up on that website. They got this entire list of they call them extremist hate groups, and they identify them as anti-government groups. And they're everybody from militias to news agencies to, We Are Change is on there. Any kind of right-wing talk people, like Alex Jones and those type of people are on there. But one that I found that just randomly clicked on, which I found hilarious, was one was called GOOH, G-O-O-O-H, and it stands for Get Out of Our House. And all they advocate, the only thing, the most anti-government thing that they advocate, this is the most tame anti-government you could ever hear of, is the idea that they would vote out career politicians from the U.S. House of Representatives. So this qualifies them as being an anti-government. By changing government slightly, you are now anti-government hate group, anti-government extremist hate group. And I just thought that was so hilarious. It so discredits the SPLC as if they could be discredited even more. But the number of kind of left-wing, like New York Times and whatever, people that cite the SPLC and the research they do as, like when the recent shooter down in Baton Rouge, he was associated with a group that was on the SPLC, as I recall. And I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about everything I'm saying. Don't take my word for it. But that's where I saw the article, where the New York Times was kind of referencing the SPLC and how that he was into anti-government extremist propaganda. And so then that led me to the SPLC. And well, what does it take to be on this list of theirs to be an anti-government extremist. Because, I mean, as an anti-government extremist myself, I'm interested. I'm interested in what other people have to say about me and what other groups I'm associated with somehow, some way. And if I'm associated with GOO, I mean, the most tame, milquetoast anti-government you can imagine, I wonder where they'd put me. I mean, probably somewhere in the top enemy number one list. I don't know. The idea that they align themselves with government, and anybody who doesn't like government is somehow bad, by aligning yourself with a group that all they do is initiate force and violence against people all the time, and anybody that doesn't happen to like getting attacked all the time is somehow an extremist. For the people who can see through the costumes and see government for what it is, and to somehow now be an enemy, I mean, you're essentially aligning with the violence that is, and declaring that you are part of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the oligarchy, whatever. Anyway, it just, I found it funny. The SPLC is, for a long time, I've seen them as, well, back in the day, you see, because they actually do talk about, a lot of neo-Nazis, and that's kind of how they started. And they're kind of, trying to identify threats in the world, and racists and people that are just, denouncing or calling out people just for how they were born. And you and I find that distasteful, I would think.
I agree.
But what they've morphed into, and the increasing number of lists, they have like 1,000 groups on their website that they are tracking, that they call extremist and, like dangerous groups of people that just want to be left alone, just see the violence for what it is and find it distasteful. I mean, I would argue that everybody finds violence distasteful. Everybody sees violence as a threat, potential threat. If they want to be around for very long, they will. So when I see a cop attacking somebody, I find that distasteful because I find that a threat. It's a potential threat to me. And I ought to find it distasteful. That's a normal response. And to align with the jackboot thugs and declare that anybody who doesn't like their violent ways to be an enemy, I question who they are and what they actually stand for. It's very hypocritical.
Yeah, to say the least. And I wonder what they would think about this reparations website, because it's purely based on race. I mean, isn't that the whole idea of what racism is that you're making judgments and you're denying things to people based on the amount of melatonin in their skin?
Right. People that you've never harmed and have never harmed you, I mean, other than, statists voting for new laws to harm people, but, not intentionally directly aimed at any one person, I suppose, hopefully.
Yeah, but like we were saying, we support this idea of the reparations website because it's a voluntary thing, and they can set the rules of the game in their sandbox. If they want to make it be for white people to provide and black people to request things, so be it. Go for it. But as you were pointing out, if the roles were reversed, or say a alternative site similar, but reverse those races, I'm sure the SPLC would be all over it.
Yeah. So it inherently shows their bias. I mean,
yeah, I've heard it claimed that it can't be racist if it's against white people. Like somehow racism cannot be used against them. Yet
right,
they do it all the time by calling white people racist for no fundamental reason. No evidence, no displays of racism, except in some cases where there actually is. But I mean, I'm saying they're using it as like Shapiro said in the last episode, it's a way to shut down and shout down alternative views, any questioning of the authority, those that be in power, the culture, the government. It's like we've talked about the DSM-5 now, saying that the lack in belief in authority is a mental disorder, and our counter to that was the belief in authority is the actual mental disorder. I mean, that's what the SPLC is doing. They're legitimizing this violence and giving it this veil of benevolence, and they're giving intellectual cover for a violent organization that has monopoly on the use of force in a geographic area.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, man. No, you well said. That's what they're doing. So, yeah, enemies of the state, bad, state, good, and it's pervasive.
Double bad good, right? This is that 1984? Like, everything is the opposite of what the word actually means?
Yeah, it's some serious doublethink. Just whenever anybody comes out and does anything bad, they'll, examine their past and whatever. And if they can find that nugget where that person was, quote unquote anti-government, man, do they love to plaster that in the headline as, just the worst person, or like a tax evader, just the worst human being, a tax evader. And in fact, that was actually mentioned in the Baton Rouge shooter. It was mentioned that he was hadn't paid his taxes, and then obviously a terrible thing, horrific human being. So so it's interesting. I don't know if that's a bias the media has intentionally, or if that's what gets eyeballs. But when you align yourself with a group of violent thugs, you don't engender a lot of good vibes from this guy.
Yeah, and I think they do it partly because there is this authority and this centralizing of power that does have the ability to hand out benefits to those that support it. And so, they're going to get, in exchange for their intellectual cover and their veil of legitimacy and benevolence, they're going to get, grants, and they're going to get, quoted in stories, and their research is going to be used for this or that. You know what I mean? It's like a reciprocal relationship. Like they get something in exchange. So in a way, it's sort of a market, but it's a market that's based on an immoral act or an immoral creation, which is government itself. And so there's sort of like this predatory, parasitic organization that's latched on to the host parasite or this host predator.
Right, the remoras that are trekking on the great white shark. He goes around eating everything. Although even the great white shark actually has to work for his food. I don't know. Government violence is I was trying to think of what government is and whether the SPLC would categorize them as a hate group because they go around attacking people, but they wouldn't. Because government, first of all, they're an equal opportunity plunderer. They'll take anybody's money. They'll steal from anybody. They don't care. And not only do they just steal from anybody, they have zero emotional response about doing it. When we see violence happen in the real world, we have an emotional response to it because it scares us. It's a threat. We react negatively to it. But government violence is so rote that it's like muscle memory for these people. They don't even see it as violence because it's just the way it is. So it's not even emotionally attached. It's like this emotional detachment. So it just allows it to happen even more. When you have an aversion to a thing, you don't want to see it happen as much. But when it's just like your daily activity, you're like, well, this is just the way it is. It's like, you're the guy slicing chicken necks on the assembly line. It's like, it's just a thing I do. I just go around attacking people. This is what I do. I don't have a particular aversion to this. I don't even see it as violence anymore. It's just a job. It's just, and it just allows it to become more prevalent. It allows people to not recoil in horror at it. It institutionalizes it. Is that the right word? I don't know. I ran out of ideas.
No, I think that was well said, and I was trying to think of a way that we could slide this back over towards Aladdin, and that movie was made in 1992, and similar to Chasing Amy, that had that Star Wars speech about Darth Vader and racism in Star Wars. I wonder if you could make Aladdin today with the whole divide on Islam, Muslims, people like that, if being depicted in a cartoon in the way that they are, if that would be considered a hate film now. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it was kind of jarring going back and watching it because at the very, very, very beginning, as opposed to the very, very beginning or the very beginning, there's a little merchant trader guy that you run into. And he starts talking about praising Allah, and Allah be thankful and praise for that. And that's just kind of jarring a little bit in today's world to hear that come out of a cartoon character's face and, whatever. But yeah, I don't know if you could make Aladdin today. It's very, very Disney of the time, and there isn't so much of that Disney today. I think the last Disney princess movie was that New Orleans one, Princess and the Frog. That was 8 years ago now or something, 6 years ago now.
What about Frozen? Is it Frozen a Disney thing?
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Yeah, Frozen was 2 years ago? So that's definitely a Disney princess thing. In the traditional Disney princess style, where the oligarchs are the good guys, and I don't know who the bad guys are. Usually some other oligarch Like in Aladdin, the bad guy is the vizier, and the advisor to the Shah, because he craves power when all he's doing really is just usurping power from the current Shah. So, but apparently the current Shah is a good guy, but the guy who takes over for the Shah, or who wants to take over from the Shah, not just because he happens to be born from the Shah. So like if the princess had just taken over when the Shah dies, that's perfectly fine. But the Shah or the vizier taking over Jafar, wanting to take over in some sort of a violent coup, that's all of a sudden terrible because, I don't know. I mean, obviously violence is bad, and violently taking over things, I suppose, is bad, but the whole concept of I'm going to take over this violence apparatus of government one way as opposed to another way. Anyway, it's splitting hairs there. But let's talk about Aladdin. The main character is this. By the way, this is like our semi-Disney show. I'm sure you're probably going to have that in like the show notes or the title or something like that. But yeah, this is like the Disney episode.
Or just Aladdin. Either way. I think
we'll see how much we're going to talk about it. So Aladdin is this homeless, essentially homeless. He kind of lives in a like an empty hovel, like an unwanted, rundown place. But he has no parents, so he's kind of like the street orphan character. And the very first time you see him, he's singing a song because he is running away from guards who are trying to catch him because he stole a loaf of bread. And these are, I didn't write down all the lyrics, but here's some of the lyrics. Some of the key lyrics. He's singing that he only gets in trouble if he gets caught. He's got to eat to live, and he's got to steal to eat. He's got to steal to eat. There's no other way to do it. He's got to. And then he only steals what he can't afford, and he says, and that's everything. So he steals everything he has. And also in the same song, he sings that he's one step ahead of the bread line by stealing, I guess, and that there's bread lines in this society, which is super great.
Was Bernie running things then?
I think he might have been. Or maybe he points to this movie as just being the greatest of all time. But and there's a lot to talk about there, but I just want to give the overall plot. So then Aladdin is, on the streets, and at the same time Jasmine is turning down a suitor because there's a law that says she can only marry another prince, like a prince. You have to marry into royalty because there's some law. And she's like, well, the law is wrong. So there's one tiny little nugget of freedom in this otherwise horrific movie. So that kind of sets up the plot. Jafar, his whole goal is to get the lamp. And he's got like this magic spell that tells him, hey, there's a guy, Aladdin, who can actually get the lamp for you. So he contrives a way to kidnap Aladdin, which is essentially throwing him in jail, and then makes a deal with him while he's in jail, like, hey, you can get out of here. All you have to do is, get to this cave and get this lamp for me. So then he does. The lamp, and Aladdin escape, and he goes back to the city, and basically he has the genie turn him into a prince so that he can win the heart of Jasmine, and they can get married and fall in love and all that. So his goal essentially is to go from being a thief to a bigger thief, which is not so much great in the world of character development. Anyway, so then they get to this castle, and there's some hijinks, and they're fighting back and forth, and Jasmine and Aladdin fall in love, and he's pretending to be the prince, and then Jafar gets outed for being the villain, and then there's kind of like a showdown, and in the end, Aladdin sets the genie free, and he goes on to be the next ruler, the next Shah, with Jasmine at his side as his wife. And at the end, they understand that Aladdin's not a prince, but then the Shah is just like, well, I'm the Shah, so I can just declare that law is no longer valid, and now you can marry whoever you want. So showing that, laws are just the whims of people that want to control your life. It's not a whole lot more to it than that. Yeah, so there's one point in the story early on where the princess kind of runs away from the castle, and she goes out into the market, and Aladdin and Abu, his little monkey, are working a deal. They steal a melon from a vendor, and they're eating it. And then here comes Jasmine, looking all smoking hot. And she comes across this little kid who's standing at this fruit vendor's table. And she's like, oh, little kid, you must be hungry. And the kid's like, yeah. And so she just grabs an apple off the table and just gives it to him. She's like, here you go. And then the merchant's like, whoa, I hope you can pay for that. And she's like, pay? What? And so he's like, oh, you're a thief, huh? And so he grabs her hand, and he's like, well, you know what the penalty for stealing is. And he's about to chop her hand off when Aladdin jumps in, and he's like, he kind of rescues her and steals a bunch of his fruit besides and jewels and some other things. And these are the heroes of the show. These are the heroes that the merchants are the bad people that are, providing value, providing this service, providing this food. And the heroes just take what they want. And why should they have to actually pay? Why should they actually have to provide value? Why should they actually have to, give something in exchange for what they're taking? Because they need it, so they're justified in taking it. It's a common theme with ANCOMs in a way. I don't know if they necessarily advocate theft, but they kind of do because they don't actually, they're talking about how, private property doesn't exist, so, you just take what you need. But then where's the incentive to produce? It doesn't make sense to me. But, so that's basically what I got so far. Did any of those points spur any thoughts of yours, Daniel?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it is a kids' movie, and so it's kind of interesting that they make the likable, lovable main characters, who are the heroes, go around stealing stuff and sing about how great it is. And it's almost as if they're training kids that, it's okay as long as you need it. So it's almost this socialist message in the film. And that's a bit scary. I think that would prevent me from showing this to my own children. Other than that, you bring up the point that the princess says to her dad, the law is unjust, and I would totally agree with that, and that's a great message. That's a small, minor thing compared to the whole stealing is great thing. But it is nice in that they also say that, he can just change the law, and so it shows, how flimsy the law actually can be. And had he changed it to begin with, this whole movie would never have happened.
Right. Right.
So it's like a waste of the 89 minutes or however long this thing is.
Right. There's no real, if it's just the whim of this guy, and it doesn't really mean anything to him one way or the other, what does he care? There's really no point. There's no plot point in the movie that's like, oh, the law is wrong. He doesn't really understand. He's just like, well, I want to see you happy, so I'll just change the law, whatever.
Yeah, so it's nepotism.
Arbitrary. Yeah, it's nepotism, and it's just arbitrary. It's like, does he care about all the other people that are getting forced marriage or whatever? In the movie, to be fair, it is just like a princess must marry a prince. But I imagine there's probably some other kind of laws like that. Does he care about those other people? Probably not.
Yeah, so that's a bit ridiculous. But, we can't talk about Aladdin without talking about the genie character and Robin Williams. And we were talking pre-show that one of the things I got from his performance is that, he's Aladdin's pal or vendor, his business provider of services, and Aladdin is his customer. And it seems that whatever Aladdin ends up needing, the genie provides it or, converts into a different thing. He adapts in many different ways to satisfy his customer. And I thought that was kind of a nice little lesson, so if a kid were to watch this and get, maybe I'd skip the first part with the stealing and just show how you have to adapt to provide value to satisfy the needs of your customer.
Let me throw some rain clouds on your happy little analogy there. The genie lives in this little lamp, and he is forced to obey the master of whoever currently possesses the lamp. So in reality, it's more like slavery. Aladdin holds the lamp. He is the master of the lamp. The genie is obligated, forced to obey him. He has to give Aladdin 3 wishes. And then at the very end, Aladdin uses one of the wishes to free him. He's like, I wish you were free, genie. And then genie's like, hey, I'm free. I can go do whatever I want. I don't have to stay in that little lamp. You can't tell me to do anything. Hey, wish for something. Wish for the Nile. And he's like, okay, genie, I wish for the Nile. He's like, forget about it. I'm not doing it. See ya. And then he takes off. So at the beginning, it really is more of a master-slave relationship than a vendor-consumer relationship. I could see your point that it is, he's adaptable and he can meet any needs, any wish that you want. I mean, other than there's like a list of things you can't do, like you can't bring back people from the dead, you can't make people love you, that sort of thing. But in terms of satisfying any wish you want, other than that, he is like all powerful and he can meet those needs. So he is essentially a euphemism for the market. But I just want to throw that total master-slave aspect to you.
Well, I stand corrected.
Here, slave, do what I command, or else. I mean, I don't know if there's ever any real or else. I guess you could just say, well, I'm just going to not rub you to make you come out. It's real kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so needless to say, my kids won't be watching this film anytime soon.
Yeah, and this is kid stuff. This is Disney. This is actually, at the height of their, this is right around like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast. This is their kind of classic animated stuff. And, these themes are mostly unique to Aladdin, but the overall, princess, prince as being great, wonderful people, and they may have been, but they are at the head of violent operations. The whole myth of the consent of the governed is a joke. Or no consent at all. And contracts must be able to be voided by any party at any time, or they are null and void. There's also at the same time, like Beauty and the Beast came out. I think Beauty and the Beast was like the next year or the year after that. And there was one part watching it where it's just like, what? So the Beast, of course, he's this prince, this tortured prince, who was a total jerk, and he was a total jerk to some witch or something like that, and the witch cursed him, turned him into the Beast. And there's some people who are the father of Belle, I guess is their name. Beauty and the Beast is Belle, right? He's off on some journey, and he gets sidelined and lost, and he ends up on the Beast's property. He's like, hello, help, I'm lost, I need help. And the Beast, for the crime of trespassing, he locks him in his dungeon forever until he dies. He's like, you are locked in here until you die. And I was just like, recoiled, disgust at that. But then Belle goes to rescue her father. She's like, I'm going to go and rescue him, get him out of this prison that this Beast is holding him. She goes in there, and what does the Beast do? He's like, yeah, okay, I'll let him go, but you have to take his place and be my prisoner forever for the crime of trespassing on my property. And I'm like, well, you're not a very sympathetic character. And I know the movie is like showing, how he transforms from this Beast to more of a good person. But he is such a horrific piece of shit at the beginning that I was like, I hate this guy the whole movie. I mean, she has a choice between the Beast and this Gaston character who's also a piece of shit. And it's like, well, she's got no choices here. This is a terrible movie. She should just be celibate or just find somebody else, because both of these choices are terrible. But, of course, she falls in love with the Beast guy because he actually turns eventually into a less of a piece of shit. But, yeah, and I'm actually getting a little bit turned off these old Disney stuff that I assume many people have really positive nostalgia for. Going back and watching them through the colored lenses of freedom it's pretty rough.
Yeah, it seems that during this new modern golden age of Disney movies that it is a whole bunch of just terrible people doing terrible stuff the whole time, and then there ends up not being much of a point to the film at all, which is a little bit bizarre. Do you think that maybe the older Disney films, like Snow White and the Cinderella types, have better messages in them, or do you think that this is just a product of what Disney's been doing the whole time?
Well, Disney was like, they basically took Grimm's fairy tales and kind of sanitized them, because the original German fairy tales are very dark and violent, and really pretty brutal. And then Disney comes along and kind of puts a pretty coat of paint on it and retells it. I would argue that they're always making a hero out of the wonderful pretty princess and the handsome prince and anybody who resists these people. And yeah, there are people that are attacking them are bad. I would have to go back and watch them individually, but as I recall, Like Snow White is eats the poisoned apple from the crone because I forget why, because she was jealous that she wasn't the fairest of them all. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a jealousy thing. So you could argue that is analogous to socialism. Saying that socialism it denounces greed and jealousy, but it employs greed and jealousy to meet its ends.
Right. You shouldn't have greed for all the money you have. Therefore, I should be greedy and take it. So my greed is good for your money, but your greed for your own money is bad.
Yeah, so I just wonder if they had better messages, back in the day versus today. Like I tried watching Frozen with my kids, and honestly, I don't know what the hell's going on in this thing. They're fighting, and there's a snow beast and a moose reindeer thing, and there's a lot of singing. I still don't understand the plot of this thing.
You are such an old man. I don't know if I could explain the plot a whole lot better. I forget. I think she's just like a kid. Elsa, I think is her name, is the one that gets the frozen powers. She, I forget if she gets the powers for some reason, or if she just naturally has them. But she's like a pariah because she has these powers because she can just touch things, and so this royal family is hiding the fact that she has these winter powers. And so she eventually is like, no, I'm just going to leave you all because you can't accept my winter powers or something like that. But then, of course, there's this backstabbing prince guy who just wants to take over the kingdom or something like that. I don't know. The fact that there's always a good prince or a good princess, and then there's bad princesses and bad princes, it never really quite makes the point that princesses shouldn't exist. They shouldn't. That power apparatus shouldn't exist. It seems to be more of a message that there are good people and bad people, and good people will do good things with power, and bad people will do bad things with power, which is nonsensical. Power can only corrupt. It can only do bad. As we've mentioned many times, you can't wield the power of government in a good way. There's no possibility. It's founded on theft. It's founded on the initiation of force. As soon as someone comes along and disobeys one of your laws or whatever, and if you don't punish him, then you're not going to be the king. You're not in power. So it's inherently bad. And I think Disney just propagates that crap. And I know they're kids' movies, whatever. I think that's probably the worst of it then, because you're essentially training people that, oh, we love princesses and princes, and, oh, Princess Diana, we're just going to worship you. For what? What reason? Why? Oh, Princess whatever her name is in England. What is her name? I don't know. She's having babies now or something. Why do I even know that crap? Why? Why does the world care?
Yeah, Kate something, right? I don't even know.
That's it. Kate Middleton, yeah. And then Harry or William. Yeah, William's her husband or something. Anyway, that crap is in every tabloid. Anytime they do anything, it's on the cover of something. And they're held up to be great people. And maybe they are nice people. But they're at the head, or at least the figurehead, of this horrific, tyrannical violence machine. And they're nothing to be celebrated. They should be shamed. And they should be embarrassed. And they should denounce who and what they are, not necessarily who they are as human beings, but as royalty or whatever, that people ought to bow and scrape before them, that they are somehow better than anybody else on the planet is a joke. It's a sick joke. And the people would bow and scrape before them. It's I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones. I'm not going to deny it. It's horrific in that there's always somebody bowing and scraping and pledging their life and their service to somebody else just because they have a certain last name, or they have a certain amount of money or power or whatever. And, of course, it's called Game of Thrones. It's called, the whole storyline is based on history and whatever. I'm not going to tear the man down for writing a story about whatever he wants to write a story about. But it does kind of, in a way, legitimize the idea that people ought to obey other people out of some sense of duty or honor, which just serves to legitimize this bullshit idea of authority, which is if you don't do what I say, I will attack you. If you want to do something willingly, fine. I don't care. Do what you want, but don't go around attacking other people.
Well said, Robert. Well said. You know, I want to wrap this back down to Aladdin just real briefly and ask you a question.
Okay.
And that is, if you had such a lamp and you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
Oh my goodness.
On the spot. Robert Johnson is on the clock.
First of all, I saw Children of a Lesser God last night. Holy smokes, that chick is so smoking hot in that movie. She plays like this deaf girl because it's, William Hurt or one of the Hurt guys. I don't know. It's like a John Hurt or a Bill Hurt or a William Hurt. I don't think it's Bill Hurt. And he's like a teacher at this deaf school. And like this ex-student that works there is like this smoking hot chick. And the whole movie, oh man, I was just like, man, I'd kiss that face. So maybe something involving her. But seriously, the problem with doing any kind of wishing means that something is going to happen that's not voluntary to another person, generally speaking. I mean, the whole funny thing about being a genie or having a genie is like things just kind of get poofed into existence, but then there's always the idea that where does this stuff come from? Does he just poof it into existence? Really, does he? Because in other worlds or in other like universes where like you get like a monkey's paw or you like make a deal with the devil, right? You make a wish and the devil grants your wish, but it's always like these horrific negative consequences. So you might wish for, I don't know, like eternal life, or you might wish for a bunch of money. But what happens is he takes that money from people you love, or something like that. You give somebody else some horrific disease in exchange for your eternal life. So then everybody else is withering and dying around you, and so then you're just like horrifically guilt. So taking that away, you've got this genie who, let's just say, you just poof everything into existence. Would you just say, make it so that everybody wouldn't initiate force against anybody else? Well, what would that even look like? That would be taking away people's will. Would I wish for an apparatus to exist? Probably this might be my wish right here. I would wish, at least my first wish, would be for, let's call it a ring or a bracelet or whatever, some sort of a wearable device that would prevent any application of force or harm done to my body. And that could be granted to every single human being on the planet, and all they have to do is say that they want it and that they could take it off at any time. But nobody else could take it off them themselves. That would be a good wish. At least I think it would be. I don't know if there's any downsides to that. There'd be huge ramifications. All of a sudden, the people couldn't attack you, take your life away. You wouldn't have to worry about, the threat of not paying taxes. You wouldn't have to worry about, the lights come on and the police cruiser behind you. Oh, no, my heart's going to skip a beat. No, it can't do anything to you. So that might be a good wish. I don't know. You got any wishes, Daniel? That'd be one wish.
That's very interesting. So you're saying that you wouldn't want to take away anyone's free will, so wishing for no violence wouldn't work. But if there was a device that could be only used for defensive purposes, and there could be some ramifications like you were saying, but let's just say that there's no way some clever person could use it offensively, then I think that's a pretty cool wish, because then people can do whatever they want, but with no fear of
yeah. Right, there'd be no war. Coercion wouldn't carry the weight that it carries now. You couldn't say, you have to do X or else. You'd be going, well, what do you mean or else? You can't do anything. You can't do anything to me or my loved one. Now maybe the wish could be extended to, or the ring or whatever could be extended to your property. I don't know. But it would just be a completely voluntary thing. And it would eliminate the ability to offensively attack people. So what would the world look like? What would it would, governments would probably shrivel up and die. Maybe it would be switch over to like a more of a voluntary situation where government would just be more of a firm, a service-providing firm, where they'd actually have to compete in the marketplace. They wouldn't be able to just, force anyone to pay them anything. They'd actually have to provide value for what they take in exchange. It would, there would still be fraud. There would still be people who are trying to defraud people of things. What would you have to do? You'd have to negotiate. You'd have to actually, the world would become a much more reputation-based thing, I think. If you got somebody who's a thief or defrauded you, you couldn't, physically attack that person to get your property back or whatever. So what would it look like? What could you do? You would have to take to social media. You would have to tell your friends and neighbors, hey, this person is a fraud. Don't do business with this guy. You would use ostracism as the main key weapon of enforcement of bad behavior. So it would be a completely voluntary society. And, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I wonder if it would create sort of this ability to, though you can't aggress against somebody, you could commit fraud or steal, and then they would have no way of, like, stopping you, and it would sort of maybe spin off into this, like, sport of, you know, people acrobatically trying to attack each other but being unsuccessful, but that might be entertaining or something.
It would ruin, like, combat sports. Like, you're trying to punch someone in the UFC, and, like, punches do anything. So, I mean, that would eliminate that profession. Yeah, well, you know, there would be ramifications across the board. I mean, soldiers would have to find, you know, positive things to do with their lives.
Well, you could turn the thing off, right? I mean, a boxing match or a UFC thing is a voluntary arrangement, right? Like, you agree to punch me in the face or attempt to punch me in the face, and I will attempt to punch you in the face.
Yeah, that's true. So you would just have to agree beforehand, hey, you're not going to turn yours on, are you? And he's like, no, I'm not going to turn mine on at some key point or something. Get that massive advantage. So, yeah. But, yeah, it's a completely voluntary situation.
All right, so that's wish number 2. So this deaf girl is wish number 1. And this
well, I'm not saying that I'm going to force her to do anything. Okay. I just said something in those realm. Okay. Just saying. By the way, she's like 54 right now. Still smoking hot. Smoking hot. Looking real good. She had an entire career. She was actually the deaf girl on Seinfeld. Remember that episode? Still
yeah, it's Marlee Matlin.
That's her? You know her? How do you know her?
She's all over the place, man.
Yeah, she is all over the place, but I didn't know that until I was like looking at Wikipedia.
Yeah, I saw her on Seinfeld a couple of years ago, you know, watching old DVDs, and then I saw her in something far more recent, and I was like, it's been 20 years, she hasn't aged at all.
I know. Well, in Children of Lesser God, she was like 21, and she's playing like a 25-year-old, but she is just like aged like fine wine. She looks amazing. So anyway, that's our Marlee Matlin minute. So yeah, I don't have a third wish. I don't know. I think that one wish would be pretty sweet. I mean, you could add on to it. The ability to fly would be pretty cool. If the rings that can make it easy to fly, you could maybe terraform Mars and colonize that place. That'd be pretty sweet. Be able to open wormholes to the rest of the universe and be able to explore the universe. That would be amazing. There's all kinds of things I'd like to have happen, like to do. But I don't know if those, maybe those are wishes. I don't know, Daniel. Do you have a wish for everybody to be happy? Oh, that'd be taking away people's will, Daniel. Can't do that.
Yeah, the standard wishes of wish you a Merry Christmas, wish for world peace, wish for everyone to be happy. None of that stuff. You know, I would kind of wish for something along the lines of that John Carpenter film starring Roddy Piper, They Live, where he has those special sunglasses that he wears, and he can see through the lies and the propaganda and see things for what they really are. And I think I'd like something like that to where people can see all this false virtue that's proclaimed out in the world, and see it for what it is, see it for the violence that it is and for the sham that it is. And I think that would change a lot of people's belief in authority and belief in, government is the only way to accomplish things. The previous episode we talked about the marketplace of ideas in the political realm. And, I mean, I saw since then a write-up by Dan Savage that I don't know what he is. He's a writer. He's the one who went and worked for a Republican campaign and had the flu and wiped his boogers all over everything to try to get people sick. He's that guy.
Oh, I know who Dan Savage is. I didn't know he did that, but I know he is a columnist for The Stranger and other things, and yeah. Yeah,
and people like him, even though he did a terrible thing that, shit, the flu killed 18 million people 100 years ago. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? But
well, he disagrees with their ideology, so he's attacking them.
Yeah, I mean, that's an attack, right?
Sure.
But he has a response to somebody asking about a viable third-party candidate, someone who supports the Green Party. Jill Stein, I think, is their candidate. And he fires back with this really long rant, and I'll post it below, and I'll send it to you as well so that you know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it is essentially complaining that there is the Green Party and the Libertarian Party running for president without doing any of the legwork at the lower levels. Like, there's no Congress people, no senators, no House people even in the various states or city councils or water districts or any of that shit. And he's saying, you got to build up your ground game to get your ideas going. You got to build up a base of support Like, he goes on this long thing, basically saying that he's upset that they're trying to get the big prize without doing all the work. And, you know, if somebody had the They Live Rowdy Roddy Piper sunglasses and the bubble gum, and, you know, they came to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and they're all out of bubble gum, I think that would be a great thing. They would see this article for the bullshit that it is.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful for people to see through a lot of that bullshit that's published on the left and the right. That would be wonderful. All that status crap.
Yeah, so maybe a more finely tuned bullshit detector is all it is, really.
Yeah. Do you know if that was that salute? The salute that the Nazi salute that was actually in the United States before, like, the Nazis came along and, like, all of a sudden everybody didn't like the Nazis, so they stopped doing it.
Yeah, I've got the name of that. One moment.
Anyway, if that sort of history would come up again, that'd be nice, and that kind of become widely known. Maybe people would stop doing the stupid Pledge of Allegiance, and that kind of propaganda can die out. That'd be nice.
Yeah. So my wish would be for people to see through that and finally understand that, you know, the use of fraud and force as a way of life, as a way to accomplish things, is not correct, and it doesn't change the morality of it. And harkening back to our previous episode, you know, like, just because you can't figure out how to build a fucking road without initiating force doesn't mean it can't be done. And it doesn't change the morality of the means by which you're attempting to accomplish something.
Right. It's like, I can't figure out how to do it, so I'm going to hit someone over the head with a stick with it. And that is the caveman response. It's like, I can't see how it would be done, so I'm going to resort to violence because I know that will work. And it's the caveman response. It's like saying, you give up, you're dumb, and therefore it's okay and moral to attack somebody. And it's bullshit.
Indeed. The salute is the Bellamy salute, named after a minister, Francis Bellamy, who was a communist, which is, you know, quite appropriate. And it's, according to the link from our previous show, it reflects anxieties among native-born Americans, the fear of new immigrants, especially in the Northeast, and the complacency of post-Civil War Americans oblivious to the dangers facing the country. So it's supposed to rekindle patriotism and heroic duty of the Civil War years and to Americanize the foreigner, which I'll include this article again here under this episode. But, yeah, so similar to your defensive device and my bullshit detector, I think that would go a very long way in getting us to that libertopia that we so desire. And it's not to say that everything will be perfect.
It isn't to say everything will be perfect. But, Daniel, the real question is, if you had such a lamp and it was a master-slave relationship where the genie had to obey you, would you do it?
No, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Well, oh, man. This reminds me of a question that Murray posed, and that was, if you had a button that you could push to repeal the state, the whole apparatus, realizing that, you know, lots of people depend on the state, and so there'd be a lot of, in the meantime, harm done, you know, because people aren't prepared to live off the teat, so to speak, would you push it?
Sure.
And he said he'd blister his finger with how fast he was pushing that thing.
So Murray would have no problem forcing the genie to do his bidding.
Yeah, I guess not. And I, you know, it does lack in principle, but it does get you where you want to be, and that's a very, very difficult one. I would have a little bit of concern about it. I mean, I guess the genie is in the lamp. It's what he does. It's what, you know, it's his thing.
Yeah, but he is not voluntarily doing what you say.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If I could grant the self-defense, yeah, I mean, if you could grant the self-defense and grant the bullshit detector, and then do the Aladdin deal and say, all right, you're free, genie, with the third wish, that seems like a fair compromise. You know, bending our principles a little bit.
You would be bending some principles, but yeah, and this is a pragmatic argument. But yeah, you would the good you would do would be overwhelming. I think the genie would probably forgive you.
Well, also he offers you the three wishes just because you're the holder of the lamp. You did not create that bargain.
Yes, but
the bargain exists. The bargain pre-exists you.
Yeah, I don't know the specific nature in which the genie was created. I don't know if that was ever addressed. I don't know. Probably there's some story to it. Does that make it? You're saying that he's offering it to you willingly, this wish?
Well, you come upon this lamp and this genie pops out and says, hey, you've got this lamp and I have to give you 3 wishes. If that's all you know, then I do wish 1, wish 2, and then free the guy.
I'd want to know a little bit more about it. But, yeah, I'd be tempted to just do it and then worry about, the morality of it later, honestly. But, I hate pragmatic arguments. I really do. You can use them to justify any kind of horror. Because it's my idea of what would be good, right? I'm imposing my will upon other people, even though I think it'll be great. What if other people think it'll be terrible?
Well, imagine if you just came up with this device and you were able to market it and sell it to people. In that way, that wish could be granted through the market. You wouldn't necessarily need this genie. The market is the genie, right? And there's no master-slave relationship there, except to the consumer.
Right. If I could somehow invent this device, and mass produce it and market it, and everybody would sell it, everybody would buy it. Sure.
Similar to my bullshit detector, which is what this show might be a part of. Being able to see through some of the bullshit.
Yeah.
So we're granting wishes over here, mosques.
Booyah, master. Well, it's been a decent episode, actually, Daniel. I can't believe it. Somehow we pulled it off.
Yeah, with very little preparation. You watched Aladdin, last night or a couple days ago, and I watched a 6-minute Honest Trailers version of it, which I'll post below because it's pretty funny. But I think we made a half-decent attempt here, and I like that we ended with the wishes. That's pretty cool.
Indeed. Yeah, no, that's good. We wrapped it all up in a nice little bow. I'm feeling good about this one. I don't know why, but I am. It seems like it was a cohesive thing, which is rare for us. We're usually so shotgun.
Well, we can have a little bit of time to do a update on what you've got working on. I know you had a very late night writing session. Did you have any epiphanies based on that, or was it just honing the message of the book or doing edits?
Last night I was essentially, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing. I really don't know. But I know that a lot of writers don't just write one story at a time. They'll keep any number of projects kind of juggling. Some people just do one story, just focus on that and perfectly pound it out. But I know a lot of other writers will do kind of like warm-up little short stories and other things like that, just to kind of get the juices flowing. Not necessarily to detract, but just to kind of maybe get the ideas flowing and maybe influence other things. So for whatever reason, I just started writing this other story, and it just kind of poured out of me. And it's, I don't know if it's going to keep going or whatever, but it was a good exercise. I ended up throwing out like 1,300 words in like 2 hours, which is really good for me. So yeah, it was it's fun. I don't know if it'll become anything. I don't know. I really don't know. So don't ask, and I won't tell you. I don't know if it's going to be a novel, a story, if it's going to sit in the proverbial drawer. But it was fun. I got the juices flowing. I liked it. So that's all you get, Daniel.
That's all we get for now. Well, hey, do send me the artwork that we discussed in one of the previous episodes. I'll try to remember which one it was and post it below that, if, what you're willing to share. And, the other thing I wanted to mention is we've got the Amazon links on the website. We've got the tip jar. We have a Patreon account that's linked out of that. So there's a couple of different ways you can support us. There's the mug. There's a banner for the mug that's available. So, yeah, pick your poison, Make your choice, as they say in those Saw movies, right?
Yeah, either chop off your leg or die, I think is like the choice you get.
Right, so click on Amazon or chop off your leg, right? No, that's not the choice.
A good analogy. No, I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, it's voluntary, strictly voluntary.
Yeah, strictly voluntary. There's also some artwork I did for Maximum Freedom. We might be turning that into a T-shirt. What do you think, Dan?
We can do that. I will post that below because I like it. I think it looks really cool, and it ties in with that saying that we came up with. I don't know how long ago now. Maybe episode 5 or 6, where we said we're not left or right. We're up and down, and we're for maximum
freedom.
That.
It kind of makes Murray look like a WWE superstar, kind of like a T-shirt. So if you are of the niche where you are a libertarian philosophy nerd and a WWE superstar nerd. Those kind of Venn diagram overlap might be the tiniest one in the world, but if you're that guy, you might dig it.
Yeah, I'm going to throw that one in the cover art for this somehow, some way. Maybe I'll have it coming out of the genie lamp. Yeah, there we go. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I hope you guys are happy with the art we've been putting together. It's a kind of a combination effort. Robert creates the elements, and then I piece them together into the little banners that we've been using. But I think they've been looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, it's putting some work, but yeah, it's definitely going. I like it. So, yeah. Good episode, Daniel. Good job. High five, buddy.
Yeah, good episode. Air high five.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, folks. What felt like our best episode yet is quickly falling off the rails here. So we'll just sign off. We've been Read Rothbard Podcast, readrothbard.com. We've got the Facebook. We've got the tip jar, the Patreon. We've got Robert's book coming out. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming at you in the next little while. And thank you very much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Maximum freedom, guys. Take care.